So the dream might seem big and unattainable at this moment. Like maybe my dream is to help 1 million people radically change their lives. But I can start living that today by asking myself, how can I just help one person? Maybe not radically change your life, but maybe even break it down to like, how can I live that bigger vision by just choosing to help somebody in this moment?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to another episode of the Heart Healthy Hustle podcast show. I'm your host, Jonathan, and I am glad you're here. On this show, I talk with industry-leading experts about connecting with others, impacting your niche, and striving to live the best life possible. It's all about sparking meaningful conversations around business ownership and entrepreneurship. The Heart Healthy Hustle show is about finding connection with proactive peers and navigating a healthy work life with full autonomy. So whether you're driving to or from work right now, exercising, eating, or just relaxing, come hang out and get ready to enjoy another inspiring episode of the Heart Healthy Hustle show. Today's guest, Marin Gordon, is a minimalist, a mother, an entrepreneur, and a health enthusiast. Her goal is to share with you how to create a life worth living through simplification, movement, gratitude, and taking responsibility for your life. So I'd like to start at the show with a favorite success quote or a saying you may live by and what it means to you. You mentioned live it. So go into what that means to you and how you use it on a daily basis to keep you motivated.
Yeah, sure. You get the money and you realize like, wow, like this, my lifestyle might change, but this doesn't change my perspective, or it doesn't change kind of, my issues that I had to begin with or whatever. And you realize that there's got to be something more, So in the beginning, my motivation was really looking for answers, was looking to understand myself and who I am in the world, and to try to defy what I was spoon-fed as far as definition, and I think a lot of people find that when they get on this journey, some things that they were told as a culture were led to believe isn't necessarily true. And when you start going through that process, it's the journey that becomes really exhilarating because you're able to move through it and watch how it redefines your life and changes it. So I don't know how else to say it other than kind of in an empowering sort of way to watch how you can move through certain situations or challenges and then overcome it and have that manifest right before your eyes is very motivating to continue to do so. Because you think if I do this much and it's changed all this for the better, like what more can I do? When you are just the personality that wants to start a business, like anybody who wants to start a business, I think a lot of us are very motivated to dream big. We think of how we can change the world or how our lifestyle can improve or change. And the idea is always like dreaming big, right? We always hear, never forget your dreams, always dream big. And it's important, I think, for me, when I start dreaming, to realize that those dreams can actually come to fruition. They can become a reality as long as I remember to live it. So the dream might seem big and unattainable at this moment. Like maybe my dream is to help 1 million people radically change their lives. But I can start living that today by asking myself, how can I just help one person? Maybe not radically change your life, but maybe even break it down to like, how can I live that bigger vision by just choosing to help somebody in this moment? It could be that I see a colleague or a friend crying and I just give them a hug. That can radically change their state of mind and their state of being right now. And who knows, like in the past, there have been circumstances where I had no idea this person was suicidal and they came to me a week later and said, I was thinking about killing myself that day. Thank you for hugging me. And you're like, wow, okay, that did radically change that person's life. Mm-hmm. And if you continue to do that little by little, it becomes a big picture because life, it's comprised of all these moments, right? And I really love that quote, which is people overestimate what they can do in a year, but underestimate what they can do in 10. Yeah. Well, we always have these big dreams and we think it's going to fall in our lap or something's going to radically change that overnight. It's not really what happens. Sometimes there are certain things that kind of shoot you forward or give you a boost. But when it comes to actually creating your lifestyle, you have to live it. You have to live it every single moment, the best that you can. And then little by little, those moments start coming together and forming a bigger picture.
What would you say to someone who's struggling to stay motivated? They're proactive, but they have trouble relating to what you just said with enjoying the process. They're so fixated on their dream, where they want to be, and they're feeling impatient. Maybe they're 25 years old, 30 years old, and they're thinking, oh, I'm getting up in age, even though they're still very young. What would you say to that person who's struggling to stay motivated?
Yeah, I would say the first thing I would say is that it's okay to feel that way. That's normal. It's important that people know that's normal. We all, that is part of the refinement process. If you're not going through any of that struggle, if you're not failing and not hurting over it and not challenged or conflicted in your mind, then you're not being refined to become that person that you need to be. You have to become in order to be. And so the becoming process it does encompass this whole array of emotions and challenges, lots of victories, but the higher you go, the farther you can fall. So it's kind of this up and down roller coaster. And the biggest thing that I can say is kind of hang on and enjoy the ride, because as soon as you dip, there's going to be an upswing. And sometimes it feels like a long time. Sometimes you can be hustling for 5 years and feel like you're getting nowhere. But if you do feel like you're stuck, try to think outside of the box. Try to incorporate new things, like, do the minimalist thing and look for the 20% that's actually helping. Because sometimes I think a lot of people get stuck because they find something that works and then they turn their wheels in that specific thing, expecting it to work for them for the rest of time. And it doesn't work that way. You have to be able to evolve with the evolution of the marketplace and how quickly how quickly our culture moves. And so it can be really frustrating at times, for sure.
Yeah, it's always changing, always updating, new ways of doing things. And it's interesting too, you can see when, you have to stay up to date and be adapting with the market. Something to ask you is just, how can I help just one person today? Personally, throughout my daily life, I almost always remind myself, make sure every person I interact with, I provide delightful experience, and not just a nice experience, but a kind, delightful experience where it's enjoyable for the other person. I uplift them and leave them feeling better, leave them in a better state than when I first encountered them. And so that's something it's kind of difficult for me. I'm very driven and fast paced. And so it's very good for me to remind myself, ask, how can I provide delight to this person and have a pleasurable experience and leave them in a better place than when I encountered them? That's something I ask myself.
I like that. It's hard sometimes, if other people are not being delightful to you. I definitely struggle when other people are not being delightful to me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm finding more and more that I prefer being on the searched end of that, where somebody is looking for the service that I provide prior to me encountering them. So I'm there when they're knocking at the door and I'm like, oh, hey, here's what you're looking for, instead of me coming up uninvited. Hey, were you looking for this? But anyway. Yeah, so go into how you transition from struggling to find your purpose to really going after your vision and being adaptable to the marketplace and staying driven through all of that.
Yeah, I really think that your purpose can evolve, and it does. It evolves with you. But when I first started business, it was not my purpose to be a mother until right now. I really thought I wouldn't be thinking about a family and having my family and wanting them involved in my business. My purpose became less about me and a lot more about them. Being patient with the process. Your purpose might just start with something simple like, I just want to be happy. Or it could be, I just want to make a lot of money, and trying to figure out what that is. I know a lot of people are motivated by that, changing their financial circumstance. At the end, I think ultimately you find yourself journeying down a very similar road that many people before you have been through, and going through that refining process. But the outcome is going to vary for different people, and that's going to change. Who knows? Maybe this hurricane catastrophe that's been going on, in Texas and in Florida might inspire people to have the purpose to move down and help. I know my husband did that after Katrina. So the purpose doesn't necessarily have to fulfill the entirety of your life or define you for all of time. I think ultimately at the end of the day, we all just want to feel like we're happy, and that we feel like we're proud of ourselves and that we've lived a fulfilled life. I think a lot of us just want to contribute. Yeah, just taking steps to that. Like we talked about before, live it. Just start living it now the best that you can, and it will develop.
So meditating and self-reflection, you mentioned that you do these things to kind of tend to your heart and strengthen your character. How would you advise somebody? It can be very scary at first. I know it was for me, especially going into self-reflection. It can be scary. It can be a dark place, especially when you first get into asking yourself, how are you?
Yeah.
How are you feeling? Why is that? Another thing I really like is inclining your heart. So you don't ever have to accept your default response to any situation. Because my default response innately is to react, and I don't have to accept that. I can analyze that and say, okay, I'm feeling this reaction, but I don't have to act on it. I can ask myself, self-reflect. So go ahead into that if you would.
Yeah, when I first started, I just began by writing all the things that I was grateful for. I pick up the pen every single day and just start my day with that gratitude, because it changed my perspective. Even when things are going really bad, I'm able to see, like, on the inside, I might be worried about this test that I have coming up, or concerned about an unhappy client that I dealt with yesterday. But at the root of all of that, there's still so many things to be grateful for. And I can still learn to emulate and to grow that gratitude despite the hardships. I think a lot of people believe that they have to be one thing, and most of those things we believe we have to be is something positive. I am happy, I'm strong, I'm brave, I'm kind. All these things are great, but I believe that the human experience is about being all of it. I'm happy most of the time. Sometimes I'm not happy. Mm-hmm. I'm kind most of the time, but I can be mean too.
Yeah.
And when you start to embrace all sides of those and realize that you don't have to only be one thing, there's this show that it's like a movie called Home. There's this little alien, and he tells the human girl that he's with, you're a sad mad. Or you're happy mad, or he puts two emotions together. And I really love that, because I think that once we begin to observe what it is that we're feeling and realize that we don't have to just be one thing at any given moment in time, but we can be multiple things at multiple moments of time, then we really allow ourselves to be. So to simplify the process, I was able to focus on the things that I really appreciate, all the positive things, and sort of grow that side through challenging times by creating my gratitude list. And then when I was first starting in the evening, I would do a forgiveness list, and I would forgive all the things that I didn't like, or all the things that I was resistant to throughout my day, including the things that I did. I think it's important to include forgiving yourself as well.
Those are very powerful tools. Yeah, I like the gratitude list. That is probably the best way, in my opinion, to generate momentum, in your career and your business, is just listing out all those things you're grateful for. It's very powerful to do that.
Absolutely.
So every morning you write that out, accepting that at any given moment you may not be happy. You might actually be angry or upset, and to realize that that's normal.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't want it to be your normal, but just putting out there, like, nobody is always happy. And, for my audience, just understand, there's not anything wrong with you if you are experiencing emotions or you feel irrational in that. Understand we're all going through it. It's all part of the journey. It's human nature. It's not like there's anything wrong with that. It's important to stay grateful. And also forgiveness is very powerful. For me personally, I should start doing that. A list at the end of the day. At the end of the day, when I'm cooking my dinner, I'll generally have a time where all these thoughts from the negative things of my day will come back into my mind. And I'm like, it's almost always in the same area of my house at the same time of day kind of thing when I'm cooking dinner or what have you. And I think to myself, no, that's okay. I'm going to forgive it. It's over. It's not doing anything to help me or further, anyone's life. So I'm just going to let it go.
Well, I think it's important to identify that your feelings are not who you are. We sort of lack the skill, so to speak, to be able to be okay with our emotions. We think that our emotions define us. I am mad. We say that. We say I am before we describe the emotion, rather than I feel mad or my body is worried right now. Because what it is it's this subconscious reaction, and your body literally produces the hormones. It releases the chemicals necessary to help you prepare for whatever you're perceiving at the moment. And a lot of those things no longer correlate to the way we live life. We're not fighting for our life in the middle of the jungle. We're not outdoors. We have very low stress lives compared to on a physical level, but our body still responds similarly. So we respond like we're going to die, like it's survival, fight or flight. And I think it's important for us to be able to take a moment and do what you say. Ask yourself, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? Not who am I? When you feel something, that gives you the perfect opportunity to actually choose who you want to be. And that's an opportunity that a lot of us really miss because we're so in the trenches with these emotions that self-reflection, that meditation that we talk about really helps you identify that they are just emotions and to separate yourself from those emotions despite the experience of them. You can still experience those emotions without having it overcome you.
So go ahead and share with my audience a couple of your most helpful books and why.
That is hard. I love all these books. One of the ones that is really fresh on my mind is MJ DeFranco. He's got a cool name, MJ. And his title of his book is called The Millionaire Fastlane, or The Fastlane Millionaire, I believe.
Yeah, MJ DeMarco with Millionaire Fastlane. Yep.
Oh, thank you, DeMarco. See, I'm butchering this right now. I really loved and enjoyed that book because I felt like the density of the things that he explained on a very simplified level as well as collectively was really magnificent. I think it was invaluable. I had to read like a bunch of other books to get all of that. And even still, you're left there with all these pieces of information, kind of asking yourself how it fits together. And MJ really did a great job at being very direct. So I liked that one. I really like The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And I'm trying to think of another one. I don't know. That's what's on my mind right now. There's a lot of good ones out there, though.
Yeah, there's so many. Yeah, MJ DeMarco's book, I was listening to that. It's very detailed.
Yeah, I like how upfront he is, too.
Mm-hmm. So, crazy question. All right. If you had 60 seconds with your 20-year-old self, what would you tell her to do and what would you tell her not to do? So imagine you in this present moment were able to sit with that version of yourself, the 20-year-old version.
I would tell her to let go of the BS that she believes is who she has to be. I would tell her to live life as if she knew she was who she wanted to be, and to not get caught up in the materialism and the social fancy, goals of having to be somebody, to put your head down and work really hard, because the next 10 years is going to mean a lot to you if you don't waste your time.
That's very powerful.
Yeah. Time is something that you can't get back. So I would tell her that. Don't waste it.
Time is something you can't get back. Just letting that soak in. Yeah, one thing I try to remind myself, think of who you want to be, the person you want to be in 10 years from now, from today, where you want to be on this date 10 years from now in detail, and be that person today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Time is something you can't get back. All right, so go ahead and share 2 of your favorite business tools. Something like Evernote, another example would be, software tools or even cameras you like, anything.
Business tools, the internet. Yeah. Can I be that broad? For me, I like lynda.com. That's a really great resource in my mind. They have everything from SEO to, photo editing, and it really pertains to my job in particular, which is internet marketing, digital marketing. So I like lynda.com is a great resource. I use Final Cut Pro and Adobe, the whole Creative Suite, day in and day out. Yeah, I think the greatest business resource is literally the internet and books. It's so funny how we finish school and we think, we've arrived, like we don't have to learn anymore. But I take you as a book reader as well. And you know that if you just spend, even if it's just 20 or 30 minutes a day reading every single day, you accumulate so much awareness that you would have never imagined, even in just a few months. So I just think, yeah, I think go out there and educate yourself as best as possible. Continue to educate yourself.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I mean, reading is so powerful. Last night, I made the decision to read a business book, and I really enjoyed it. It's just, I just felt inspired. Oh, this is good. It's applicable, practical advice for me. For a lot of us who are young pros and maybe have trouble seeking a solidified mentor, it's like each book that you pick up is a mentorship, because you may have autobiographies, you may have a book written about business by some business mogul, somebody who really put a lot of their time, energy, and effort into relating their thoughts onto these pages, so that people like us can go ahead and read it and say, oh, okay, wow, it's almost as if I'm having coffee with them every time I pick up this book.
I think there's barriers for everyone. It could be education barriers. Maybe you didn't finish college, or maybe you grew up in a suppressed environment. Everyone's going to have challenges. And no matter who you are or where you came from, most of us have the resources and the opportunity. I always say, especially right now, if you have access to the internet, you can read, you can speak, you live in this country, especially where business is hailed and encouraged. Go out there and be the best that you can be, and forget the naysayers. If you are trying to please everyone, you're going to lose, because people will have a lot to say to you. But I promise you, when you actually reach that point where you're making a difference, all the pedestals that people put you on will take you, by surprise. And you realize that it was never about that. It's really about fulfilling that purpose. No amount of money or fame or appreciation could ever replace the confidence that you feel when you go out to pursue something and you make it happen. I would say it's definitely harder for people starting out, whether man or woman, or no matter how old, 60 or 20, I think in the beginning it is very tough, because you haven't established that level of confidence for yourself, because you're just starting to make it happen. So live large and live it. And over time, those things will, those doubts and things will start to fade. Yeah. They don't ever go away, but your confidence grows, and that confidence sort of is your shield. It deflects them.
All right. If you could only tell a business owner one piece of advice to keep their hustle healthy, what would you say?
Never compromise your values for anything.
Powerful. MJ, thank you for being with us today. And go ahead and share with my audience ways that they can get in contact with you and follow up with you after this interview.
Awesome. You can reach me at mj-gordon.com. I've got a nice little contact there, or any of my social media, which is at Marin Jayden. That's MarinJayden.
And what's something that is getting you out of bed today? Like, so something that you're super excited about, any upcoming projects, things you're working on?
Just my kids. I enjoy my kids so much. I enjoy getting my work done and spending time with my kids, and then just going out there and living it. There's so much to explore, so much to learn, so many people to meet, just new things. This interview was one of them today. I was looking forward to this. So thank you so much for having me on here. It's a real honor. Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you for listening to the Heart Healthy Hustle podcast. If you made it to the end of this episode, I want to say thank you. And also, I want you to ask yourself why. What about this episode really stood out to you? I want to challenge you to take action on that thing. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate your time and consideration to go ahead and leave a helpful review in iTunes, so it really helps the podcast grow and we can impact even more people who need this. Thank you guys for all of your support, and I will see you in the next episode.